Hello, everyone. This is Divya Jain from BioAngels, and I welcome you to the third session of the Biotech and Healthtech Angel Investment Masterclass, a series of 6 masterclasses by industry leaders to help you understand the angel investing in biotech and healthtech sectors. These sessions will help to speed up on the dynamics of the angel investing ecosystem and emerging practices with the help of trusted experts and curated content as you take the plunge into the world of investment. To give you a gist about BioAngels, it is a unique partnership between BIRAC, an enterprise of the Department of Biotechnology, and IAN, India's single largest horizontal platform for seed and early stage investing. It is India's first sector focused angel investor group in biotech, health tech, medtech, pharma, clean tech, and agri-tech. Brings money, mentoring, and market access, echoing IAN's genetics. It brings a heady mix of private investor groups driving the investment process, along with access to domain and technology experts embedded in the government ecosystem through BIRAC. Through this masterclass, we also invite angel investors to join BioAngels and discover and get early access to a pool of high potential startups in these sectors witnessing exponential growth. Moving ahead to today's topic, due diligence and evaluating startups in biotech and health tech space. Research on angel investing portfolios shows that more and better due diligence increases the probability of both venture success and investment returns. Good quality DD is a discipline that follows a repeatable process. Join our speaker in this session focused on the areas of due diligence, red flags, and a complete walkthrough and sample case studies to guide through the process of due diligence for an angel investor. Today, we are joined by Dr. Vinayender Tulla. Dr. Vinayender Tulla has a decade of experience in leadership roles in both corporate and public sector healthcare units. An MD in radiology from Sri Ramchandra University in Chennai, Dr. Tulla also holds an MBA in healthcare management from Indian School of Business. With a keen interest in advancing medical technology and innovative research, Dr. Vinayender Tulla mentors startups in healthcare sectors with his expertise in heading chain of operations for healthcare business units, strategic initiatives, and healthcare delivery. He is an active angel investor and has invested in multiple startups, including notable investments, Matrix Laboratories, and Care Group of Hospitals. His main focus is in healthcare, education, and sustainable living space. Few of the companies in which he is a board member include Transcell Biologics, which is an innovative biotech company with continuous discovery and process development, as it is a central theme to deliver unique disruptive STEM-based solutions, and GenePowerX, which is into personalizing healthcare delivery with its proprietary AI-enabled genomic database. I welcome you, Dr. Tulla, for joining us today for this masterclass. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Divya, for the introduction. Welcome everyone to today's session. It's very exciting to see the topic today is very interesting, and I heard the panel. The people joining, the participants and the delegates are from different investors who are interested to invest as an angel investors. So I welcome everyone. And so I've been a member of IAN from the last 6 to 7 years, and I've invested through IAN in a couple of deals. And my focus has been in healthcare. And so I've also led few deals for IAN through in healthcare. So the sector is something which is, because I come with a background of clinical background, this is a sector which I'm very much interested and keen in. And I'm very happy to see that we have a platform which is focused in this sector, that is BioAngels. And even more exciting is that it's been tied up with a very reputed platform like a BIRAC, which is a government institute, which is actually supporting startups and doing a tremendous job in startup ecospace, especially in this sector. So I'll start sharing my Can you see the screen? Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Your screen is
Okay.
visible.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So I'll be discussing a little bit brief about this sector because when we are doing due diligence and evaluating startups, why this sector and what's happening is something we need to see. So we'll have a brief overview of what's happening in this sector in the last couple of years. And I'll go through why it is important for us to do a due diligence when we invest, especially at an early stage. And what are the steps that we usually have to take for, to do a proper due diligence when we invest in a company. And then we'll also look into why we should also consider investing in this particular sector. So in the health tech, as you can see in this graph, there has been a huge boom in the sector, investment in this in the last 1 year. So and that could be because of the COVID or because there was a lot of opportunities in healthcare that were just suddenly sprung up. So in 2021, there is a lot of funding which has happened. And of course, even this year, though the dust is settling down, but still we see a lot of investment going into the sector. So within health tech, we see a lot of interest in fitness and wellness because, of course, people have come to realize that it's not just being, going to the hospital, get treated. You need to be healthy and you need to prevent disease as well. So, everyone is trying to focus on fitness and wellness, and that's how the industry is booming. And of course, telemedicine, you know that we were all in the lockdown, and the only means of getting consultation was through telemedicine. So that was a huge boom in that sector. So, and also there is this online pharmacy, which is also booming, and we have seen a lot of acquisition and a lot of activity in this space in the last 1 year. So there is a lot of activity in this space, and we'll also look at few of the companies which are actually, active in this space. So, and also in biotech, it's Indian bioeconomy is like it's growing 8 times in the last 8 years. And presently it's estimated to be $80 billion. And the Indian share in the global biotech industry by 2025 is expected to be 19%. So the biotech industry currently comprises nearly about 5,000 companies, out of which 4,200 that is nearly 80% of them are just startups. And they're expecting that the startup will increase to nearly 10,000 by the year 2024. So there's a lot of activity happening in this sector. So what are the trends that we are seeing in health tech? Because what are the things that are actually evolving? As you say, that we have seen before that there has been telemedicine that is evolving. So in a way that even these hybrid healthcare models, which are both having monitoring patients remotely, and before we used to go to hospital for even a small disease, right now we can also do that with these hybrid healthcare models, which are also coming up with this wearable technology, which we can monitor their regular health. And also there are digital mental health and digital women's health, which are the two sectors which are having a lot of traction and a lot of startups. And of course, digital health, mental health has also been in because of the post-COVID effects. But of course, this is something which was very much necessary, and at least now it has become more and more used. So, and also artificial intelligence and diagnostics and clinical decision making. This is also a sector which is evolving a lot, and wellness and longevity. As I told you, that this is a sector. People want to not just live longer, but they just want to live healthy as well, and also healthcare SaaS models as well. In biotech, that is mainly human biotech. Of course, we have innovations happening in the way clinical trials are done. Like one of the company which are in IN portfolio, that is Transit, it has a platform which is a stem cell platform, which is the toxicology testing can be done on that, and which has the potential to replace animal testing in the future. So, and also the other sectors which are really like cell therapy, there is like cardiac cell therapy which is coming in, and also there is a company which Immunio which has got acquired. So there is a lot of activity happening in this sector. and also precision medicine. Precision medicine was long overdue, and the notion of one size fits all is not anymore there in medicine, that we need to have a precise therapy for individual patients is something which is coming now. And of course, the early adopters are the oncology segment, but of course, it's also coming in other departments as well. So in neurological disorders, we have a lot of stroke cases. We have a lot of startups working in that. And of course, there is also AI, ML enabled drug discovery, which is happening. So there is a lot of activity, and these are the sectors which are booming in this space. So now, since there's a lot of traction happening, and we see, as an investor, we come across a lot of ideas. So what do? We get interested in investing in them. But angel investing, if you understand, is it's a very early stage investing. So it's usually the seed capital which we actually give to is the first capital that the startup gets, and usually this is funded by two. Either a FFF round, what we usually call as a friends, family, and fools round, and or it's called we do it through the angel round. So my first what I have done my initial investment of maybe a decade or 12 years back was when I was working in a hospital. So I had my software, a maintenance guy who came up with this idea of digitalizing our hospital records. And we have to have this, and he showed me a business plan, and he showed that we can replicate this in hospitals. And I got sold by the idea because I thought that's where what will happen in the future. And I, first check I've given it to him, and then of course there were a lot of challenges in that. And then of course with all good intentions, he couldn't really scale it up, and of course it went down. So what I'm trying to say is that of course it was neither my friend or my family. I've invested still in that person, so I didn't do any kind of due diligence. He was still working for the same company that was there before when we were, trying to make the startup. So it's not just the idea which matters. It's also we need to understand, because this angel round is a very we are going for a high risk kind of an investment. So with high risk, we also need to understand whether we should be very much sure that what we know we really know. So a very well executed due diligence actually then increases the chances of investment return. At the same time, it reduces the risk. So it's very much important that we do a proper due diligence. And again, we are talking about this early stage company. So whenever we think of this early stage company, so it's not always possible to evaluate every aspect of the company, because it's not about removing the risk or eliminating risk, or it's not about there are a lot of unknowns, and there will also be failures. So we just have to find what are the obvious things that are visible to us, and based on that we need to take our decision whether we need to invest in this company or not. So the due diligence as a process, so this is there are different ways we can do due diligence of a company, how to evaluate a company, the different formats. But this is something as an angel investor which I actually keep and do whenever I look at a startup. So firstly, we actually we screen the company, and then we look at its business, and then we look at how is the financial risk of investing in this company. And then of course we do the proper documentation and the proper legal, financial, and other due diligence we usually do in any other company. So from a platform perspective, so for example, whenever we have the deals come through two channels, basically we have deals coming from directly to here for example in BioAngel network, and whenever the deals come, the IN team goes through those startup decks, pitch decks, and then has a word with the founder. And if you see that there is the startup has some kind of a mojo, then of course they will bring it onto the platform. Or also there is another chance that even maybe an existing investor in the platform may actually wants to introduce the deal on that BioAngel platform. So this is the two ways we actually get the deals on the platform. And then after that, once we find that it can be showcased, there's regular pitch sessions which happen, and we showcase it. And one of it usually happens on Saturdays. We have a pitch sessions then on that day. And once there is an interest in from the investors, any of they can be a lead who can take it, who can understand, who wants to do a deep dive. He does a proper due diligence along with the IN team, with the BioAngels team. And then after that, once the proper due diligence is done and there is some kind of a valuation which we come to, and then we bring it back to the platform and then we showcase it for investment. So that's the usual process that as the deal flow happens through BioAngels network. So as an angel investor, again, we want to look at the deals and look at what are the steps and how we want to evaluate those kind of deals when they come across. So when the first step, of course, is when we screen a startup, we have to see whether this actually fits our investment thesis. So how do we do that? So first, we actually look at what's the need of this, for a solution or a problem or a product that they are developing. So is there a need for that product? Is there a existing problem that they are solving, or there is no problem that they are actually, and they're just having a solution out there? So something like those lines we need to evaluate. And of course, we should take inputs from domain experts. There is a startup which is working in some clinical, like for example, in a robotic arm, maybe an orthopedician we can talk to, whether he will be using this kind of an arm. And for example, if there is a drug discovery program that's the startup, then we need to talk with scientists and experts in this specific field. So we need to reach out to domain experts to understand whether this actually there is a necessity for this kind of a solution for this solution. And then of course we look at the founder, and this is a very important aspect. So we look at the founder and we see what is the background of the founder, and see what was he doing previously, and why is he actually wants to do this, run this startup. And also if there is a product or a device, we can have a look at it, and if it's a service or if it's a app, we want to have a look at it and see if how it works. So basically, once we do this basic kind of a background check and understand, then we will see if it fits under our investment thesis, and if it is, then we actually take it to the next steps and we actually deep dive to see if it makes sense for us to do a deeper due diligence in that business. So one example is that when this is one of the first companies that I companies that I invested through IN. I actually led this deal through IN. So this is a company which was into cardiac monitoring, is a remote cardiac monitoring device, which was, and also has an extended monitoring for nearly about 10 days. So the founder came in with and pitched in one of our pitch sessions. So the first question was whether it was needed, this product was needed. So as a clinician, I knew that there was a requirement because there is an old school Holter that was there, and we required a new product which can actually be much more comfortable than a Holter. And then I've reached out to cardiologists who are experts in this, like electrocardiologists who understands rhythm abnormalities, whether they will be using this kind of a device. And they said that definitely, if there is they can monitor for a long duration of time, it will have much more clinical inputs, and that they can impact the clinical decision making. And of course, the founder, he came from a strong bioengineering background. He worked in a medical device company before, and also when he showcased the product, and also it's a pilot product, we could see that he had an understanding of how to develop the product. And also we all tick mark, and we know that definitely this is something we want to spend more time and to do a deep dive. So once we have decided that this is something which fits our investment thesis and wanted to take it forward, then it's very much important for us to look at the other aspects of the business and see. So what are the things that we look at? Of course, the founding team. I think this is one of the most important factor. And then, of course, we look at the technical risk. Then we look at the market adoption risk. If it's having revenue or not, and is there no revenue, or what's the IP risk that is there? If it's a startup which is building an IP or it has a patent, so we need to see what is the risk of there, and of course, if there is any regulatory risk. and also general competitive analysis. So we have to have a whole 360. Of course, we cannot have answers to all of them, but we have to do at least find out whatever is available through open sources. So the founding team. So wherever there is, so especially in healthcare, we find people who start this start a healthcare company. Though either they are from the same sector, like maybe people who are like even I see doctors coming and starting startups. So they may come from a domain, same healthcare background, or they may come from tech background. Or they may see a problem that they think they can solve with technology. They may want to start up, or they have faced a medical issue and they can think they can solve it. So they come in and they want to start the startup. And so whenever they come in, of course, they come with a clear intention of solving a problem. But once they start a company, they understand the nuances of a medical, medtech startup is far beyond than just solving the problem. I mean, there is a lot of things that needs to be taken into account, and running a startup is from an early stage is going to be complex. So that they understand. When we see at the team, we see we look at the team, we see if they understand the challenges over here, and of course, if there is any, for example, they come from a pure domain expertise, like for example, somebody is into is a drug discovery program, so they have to have the capacity to build the team, and also at the same time understand the brand, run a business at the same time. And also there are going to be challenges, whether they're going to be persistent through that adversity, and also wherever if there is if they hit a roadblock, they should have the capability to pivot. So one of the fine examples that we have in IN is that by a company called NOAC, which actually was started as a more of a robotic company, and then of course when COVID hit, it actually started working on the ventilators, and then pivoted and built. It's an amazing story where they actually built a lot of ventilators, and it actually solved a very critical problem at that point of time. So, and also at the same time grab the opportunity out there. So we need to see whether all these aspects are there within the founding team. So of course there is a business model risk. We always know that of course whether the model that they are working up, does it how much does it cost, how much revenue that is going to make. I usually use this business model canvas I learned in my business school. This helps me to evaluate a company, where I put in different aspects of the company in this and try to evaluate and see. So it may or may not work for all startups, but at least it's just some kind of a working model. So we need to understand from where the revenue is coming in and what are the costs involving in getting that revenue. So again, this is something very unique to the sector. It's called the adoption risk, which is there because when healthcare is one is very a sector which actually though there's a lot of innovation happening, adoption takes time. There's a lot of gap between innovation and adoption, and if then the startup should not get stuck in between where there is adoption, there is no adoption. So we need to understand whether it can be adopted in the real-time scenario. For example, we should see if, for example, stakeholders over here are like, for example, there are doctors and there are also hospitals. Will they be able to adopt this kind of a technology? So one of the fine examples is, for example, when a company is actually working on artificial intelligence to, for example, in my radiology, where they try to, because we have startups which have worked up and to diagnose looking at the images. And also there are a few startups which are you take a picture through a mobile phone and on your skin and there's a lesion, and you can actually detect whether it's a cancer or a benign lesion. So there is a lot of innovation, and also when you compare those kind of results with real time, when we have a clinician, in fact, there are a lot of peer-reviewed studies which says that the tech diagnostics were actually much more accurate whereas the clinicians were nearly, the tech was more accurate than the clinicians. But just by that notion, if you just go and say that it's going to replace the doctors, then that's not going to work. So we need to understand where it can actually fit in. And when it comes to adopting these kind of technologies, so we can't replace the existing, for example, doctors over here, but whereas we should incorporate so that doctors who use this technology should be replacing the doctors who don't use it. So something like that. So we need to incorporate. So is that something the risk that we have to look into? So at the same time, we also look at the technical and IP risk. This is always there because this is a new startup and there is working on a technology. It could be something which is already existing out there, or is it maybe it also may be possible that the similar tech can be also replicated. So we should look at how is the defensibility over here, and also we also know that when there are MNC, they have huge budgets and they have research budgets, so they may also be working on something very similar to you, whereas we will be working on a shoestring budget over here and trying to compete with them at the same time. So we need to understand what kind of risk is that. And next is, of course, the regulatory risk, because again, this is a human life we are dealing with, especially if this is a medtech or a health tech company. There are a lot of regulations which have to be followed, and also compliances. Like, for example, a company is dealing with patient records, then are they HIPAA compliant or not? So there are a lot of compliances in this medical and the medical industry, and we need to understand whether the startup is actually looking at this as well. And of course, there are changes that will usually happen in regulations. And for example, that could be the regulatory change can actually change the whole business model of a startup company, or actually can also help them. For example, when we had COVID, there was a change in where the government has actually relaxed norms for telehealth, and that's how there was a boom in this telehealth platforms coming on. So that's what. So we need to keep a tab on what are the new changes happening on this. And again, we look at the timing risk. This is also though the innovations is happening, we usually in healthcare and in medical industry, we usually have a notion of overestimating the impact of technology in short term, whereas underestimating it in the long term. So we need to show whether in the overall trajectory of where the innovation and the expectations, and also whether we are delusional in understanding, thinking whether this innovation is going to solve the problem. So, for example, when genomics, of course, is nothing. It's not new. It's been there for the nearly more than a decade. But of course, now we see a lot of more adoption happening now. Though there was a lot of traction, but we've seen that we require many tools like big data and cloud computing technology to actually analyze all this data, and then of course we could use such kind of data to actually use it in, for example, give it in precision medicine. So these kind of understand where the startup is in the whole the innovation cycle is very critical, because we don't want to invest in where the startup is way too early and it's unable to take it forward, or it's actually not going to work. So its timing is also makes a lot of importance. So once we analyze to those and see that, okay, we have deep dived and we analyze the business is making sense and we can actually make an investment. So we need to understand what is the financial risk. So we're here by financial risk. I don't mean the financial risk in the startup company, but it's as an investor, what is your financial risk when you invest in a startup? So typically, when we invest, we look at the investment size and see what is the investment going to be used for. So what is the runway that is going to give this company? For example, we ideally want at least 18 months to 2 years of a runway left. So what are the how are the founders going to use the money, and we have to keep it up on that. And of course, the next comes when you valuations. So when you talk about valuation here in a startup, because as specifically within this industry, the 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 usually the return on investment and also the time it takes for a startup to mature is longer than probably in other sectors like a fintech or some other sectors. So it takes a lot of time. So sometimes it's very whether the company would be able to when we have evaluate a company, we should be a reasonable valuation where of course when we follow on with there is another investments that needs to be done has to be reasonable. So we want to see if this what the generally in early stage companies, the usual format of using the revenue multiples or discounted cash flows usually don't work because we have very limited data out there. So we usually understand, and there's more of an understanding between the investor and the founder, and we come to a certain value. And at the same time, we have to be sure that we are not diluting the founder stake too early, because if a company requires investments in multiple rounds, we want to see that there is the equity of the founder still there even in the future further round. So there has to be somewhere a bridge in between. We have to come and understand what could be the right valuation of the company, and also what could be the exit from this company, because uh, when we invest in a company, we always pick companies which have a larger market size, which have the growth potential, and also grow not just has the potential to grow globally. So there is a lot of parameters we see so that the company grows. But if for example a startup has reached a plateau and it's just having sustaining on itself, then the possibility of exit is very less likely. So we need to see what could be the exit from this company. And of course, as an angel investor, we always want to see if we don't want to invest alone. That's why platforms like BioAngels is a great platform to be there, because you don't want to do this alone, because there's a lot of risk involvement. And there is, when we do it to a platform like BioAngels, we have the know-hows and understand and also get views from experts who are from different fields, and then we take an informed decision to invest. So it could be co-angels that are in the same platform, or it could be a co-investment coming from another firm who will be investing in the same. So that combined investment always mitigates that risk. So all these things we need to consider whenever we are investing. And of course, this is the final step, that is what are the documentations. Of course, this we usually do for any company when we are investing, no matter what stage they are. But these are the things like, for example, we have experts in this field who look into it. So, for example, in legal diligence, we look at different parameters. For example, financial diligence, look at what are the balance sheets. And for an IP or a patent, we'd actually look at whether the patent has been filed as they have been, as the founder has said, and also we look at the contracts if the startup is working with any has a commercial engagement with any entity. So we want to look at those contracts. So, for example, when one of the company we were about to invest was basically was having a medical device which they are developing in a institute. So when we were very much impressed with that device, it was ocular device. So once we have gone through and we were actually going to investment, but once we saw the contract, it was actually within the contract there was a clear mention that patent and IP will remain with the institute and all that. So it's very important to go through the contracts which the startup has. So that is from the perspective of an investor, what are the things that we need to look when we evaluate a startup. But also we need to understand when we invest, from the other side of the table, even the founder is trying to do his own due diligence. So he will be looking to identify the right investor, whether we are the right investor or not, and wants to make sure that we have a basic understanding, because this is a long journey. Once we are tied up, it's going to take a lot of time engaging with each other. So they want to make sure that we have a basic understanding of what the technology they're building, and also they look at whether we have the potential of making introductions or connections in the industry, and also help the founder in, for example, they need to for raise further rounds, whether we'll be able to help them. So they do their own kind of a due diligence on us as well. So we need to be able to help them in all these aspects whenever they invest in a startup. And I think this is where even for startups, we have to look at platforms like BioAngels, where we have all this expertise and also connects, so which can help the startups. So again, the duration usually from the time the pitch, from looking at the pitch deck to actually investing, it can take anywhere. The due diligence process, the whole process can take anywhere between 3 to 6 months, but it all depends on the complexity, and of course we have to go through a lot. But from from our perspective, we need to see that we do things as fast as possible, because usually these are companies which will be running on smaller budgets, and we also have to look at the runway. And usually runway, if you look at these companies, if they say that we have runway of 6 months, for example, they have about 75 lakhs of cash in them, and they have a runway of only 6 months. Then it's about within 6 months. After 6 months, they don't have any cash in the bank. So we need to work as fast as possible, so that at the same time, we have to see that we don't miss any of the important steps and review the company. So then the question comes, why should we look at this sector? Of course, as the sector, it is identified as one of the sunrise sector. This is apart from, for example, fintech, this other sector which is actually getting a lot of attention. We have seen this impact how innovative startups can have during the COVID period. So this is definitely something, and of course, we are seeing exponential growth in the last few years, and this has also been fueled by a lot of government initiatives in this sector. And of course, we have platform like BioAngels, which is doing extraordinary work in funding and also helping in the early stage companies, especially to create a proof of concept, and also helping in funding the startups as well. So here, BioAngels is this unique platform. We have this angel investors who come from this experienced and diverse background, joining hands with BioAngels, which is a platform, which is a government platform, which is helping a lot of startups. So in this particular sector, so there definitely there is something which is very, very interesting and also exciting at the same time. And also we should seriously think as investing in this company. So that's it from me, Divya. Thank you. I hope I've covered the basics of what we do. I'm not sure I've taken a little more time than expected.
That's perfectly fine, sir. Thank you so much for such an enriching session and sharing different aspects an investor should look at while diligencing a startup. And of course, the aspect that startups themselves are doing a diligence on the investors, and that is also actually a very important thing that investors should actually look at while diligencing. So thank you so much. Moving on to the Q&A section, we have a few queries from our audience. The first one is from Pawan. He's asking, how is India doing in human biotech compared to the West?
Oh, well, it's a great question because there is a lot of catching up to do when we see in the West, especially in US. So there is a when we compare the ecosystem over there is much more evolved and mature when it's compared to what we are trying to do in India. So the especially with in therapeutics and drug discovery because of there is a lot of funding which happens through networks, and also the pharma companies have their own investment firms, and so they do also invest in this biotech. So they're much more evolved, and I'm seeing that we are also somewhere going in that direction, and hopefully we will be one of the we'll be also a part of a leading. As I said, we are nearly 20% of the biotech sector in globally.
Great. Next question is again from Pawan. Are health tech usually asset or capital heavy? What percent of these startups are into hardware, better equipments, etc.?
So not all health tech are asset or capital heavy. So it does need not be so because especially if you are a SaaS based platform, or you are having unless you are investing, we have a lot of capex that it goes into when you're investing. So we usually there are a lot of like platforms like app creation, which is not very asset heavy. They do for example, one of the company, so I have invested, is called BioAngels, which has uses helps in pregnant women. So there is not a lot of assets being created, but at the same time, there may be a lot of OPEX that may be required because the customer acquisition cost may be higher, and they need to acquire, even for telehealth companies, we have seen how that snowballed and into we're getting into acquiring a lot of these clients, and all and we need and so that is the capital that we require to so that is the capital that we require to have some kind of a gain in that sector. So it all depends. So there are few capital asset heavy companies, like for example, somebody working in a med devices like robotics, they may have to invest in capital.
Right. Next query is from Rahul. He says, generally, a drug company will have a long gestation or on approvals, etc. So he's asking, is there any typical range of valuation for the first angel round for such companies?
Yeah, that's a good question. So because whenever we have a drug company, or when they are into discovery of a new drug, usually we don't see revenue in that company for the next couple of years. So it's unless without visibility of revenue, how do we actually come to a conclusion? How can we evaluate this company is based on what is it that is required for this company to actually go from the initial drug discovery to, for example, it is planning to go to the IND stage. So what is the investment that is required? Maybe when it reaches the IND stage, maybe it can be acquired, or maybe there is a further investment which may come in, and also they may take it forward. So the initial investment we need to know what is the size of investment to go from now to that IND stage. So based on the investment, we have to see how much is the founder raising right now, and how much is it required to raise in the further rounds. And based on that, we need to have some kind of a calibration and say that we don't want to dilute the founder too much, where if he requires multiple rounds at the same time, we need to say whether this is a potential to have a good valuation in the future, because even the incoming investor wants to, if it is too much highly valued, may not be keen on investing in this company. So there has to be some soft spot. There is no metrics where we can say that these are the points that we have to look in and properly evaluating, but definitely generally we have to see that it is somewhere where both the founders and investors agree upon.
Absolutely. Next question is from Ankush. He says, if we got the investment from any investor in exchange of X percentage of equity, and later on, if we need more funds, so again, we have to give him some more equity, or will it be okay at previous equity?
Okay, so yeah, this is a problem we usually founders face is usually when they raise a funding from angel fund. For example, there is a 3 crore investment, and when they are at a flag end of using and they have a short runway left, and they are trying and have gone to the market to raise for the round, but they definitely there will be a time when they are actually stressed out to because they don't have enough funds. So that is the time where they usually come back to the existing investors and see if there is a possibility of reinvesting in that startup. So when we do that, we have a couple of models that we can work around. Usually, like one of the company what we have invested in, where we raised a small bridge round in between. That bridge round is usually used for so that it can give that kind of a runway till the founder finds the further investment. Now, when we raise this bridge round, we usually do it in a when we don't dilute in direct equity as such. I mean, if we can have other methods like we can go for a CCD round where we put a valuation based on the next incoming round of investor who's coming in, and based on that we can have a valuation cap and a bottom, and that conversion can happen in the future. So that is where, for example, the founder is not able to raise any funding in the future. Then whatever the agreed upon the valuation in terms of the valuation cap, that is what is the convertible is. So that we have to have that mechanism for this kind of bridge rounds, but usually it depends and it's pegged on the next round of investment.
Right. Next question is from Susie. I guess I am pronouncing the name right. Is selling to the Indian medical insurance market a good idea, or do angels look for startups targeting Europe and US markets?
So the Indian medical insurance is actually booming. So if any startup working in this space, there is a lot of opportunities out there. So if for example, there is a company which is tying up corporates with insurance and creating a model where they actually have check the corporates regularly so that the insurance costs go down for those corporates. So there are a lot of startups which are working in the insurance sector, because this is insurance penetration has been increasing in the last couple of years. And again, because we have seen this pandemic, a lot more people are getting insured now than before. So definitely this is a sector which is increasing traction.
Absolutely. Next question is from Arjit Gupta. He says, what are the funding options for a clean tech company?
Funding options for a clean tech company, funding is usually whenever in an early stage, it is usually an angel investment that they have if it's an early stage company, and usually it is the regular format of a funding. But there could be, for example, a company which we have invested through IEN, which it is into clean tech, that is Zip. So they have we have invested in an early stage, and of course the company has gone on to raise more investments. But also they have structured in a way, they also had not just equity but also debt as a investment into that company. So there could be other options as when you have evolved and as matured as a company, that can be an option as well.
Right. Next question is from Archit again. From which all institutes we can apply for grants for research? We wish to do tie-up with various government bodies for research.
So there are a lot of course, institutes right now coming up with centers of the incubation centers. They are encouraging a lot of startups. For example, here in Hyderabad, we have something called BioNest. There are a lot of startups working over there. And of course, if you look at nationally, we have some BioAngels, which have grants like DPT and other grants which you can apply for, or you can go and look from wherever, whichever location you are, and there must be some institute or some having their own probably a fund or at least an incubation center where you don't have to spend on the resources to do your work on your startup. So you just have to work on. So there are a lot of either locally or you can go for a national and BioAngels.
Right. Somebody wants to know about robotic biotech growth in India.
Yeah.
And what is the scope? Yeah, around the scope.
Yes. So we have. So one of the things is we have great engineers in India. So we have a lot of institutes, engineering institutes. So we have produced a lot of engineers. So there, in this sector, I've seen robotics used for as a replacements for somebody with disabilities, like replacing an arm or a leg, and also robotics in also for in doing operating, and also, for example, you want to do a precision-based biopsy. I've seen a startup which I've worked with, where they have developed a tool where we can accurately pinpoint, go inside with if all the information is fed through a CT scan, that it directly goes and does a biopsy without human intervention. So there is because we have this lot of engineers who have been and also working in this sector. So there is a lot of innovation happening in this space.
Yeah. So we'll be taking one last question because of the paucity of time. What are the compliances requirements for a diagnostic SaaS company?
As a diagnostic SaaS
company.
Okay. So what are the compliances? So I think one of the things we have whenever you are dealing with your patient's data, we have to be very compliant, like a HIPAA compliant. So the patient's privacy is very important. So we have to check whether we are HIPAA compliant, and also it's very much critical with how we store the data and what we do with the data. And what, for example, we are doing any kind of risk with this analytics on this data, and also the consent becomes important. So we need to have a consent, and so there are, of course, when you talk about if you are using as a diagnostics, or if you are actually using in predicting predicting something, then we also need proper regulatory approvals to do that. So these are a few things that we have to look in when it comes as a compliance.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, sir. With this, we have now reached the end of today's engaging session. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today. And we are really grateful for the time and effort you took to share your wonderful insights with all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Danga. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
And thank you to all of our lovely audience for joining us today. Hope you enjoyed the session, and I hope we have added value to you. Goodbye, everyone, and have a very good weekend. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Goodbye. Bye.